to Charmed Life, a radio show discussing spirituality, magic, and the unconditional love of the universe. Thanks for tuning in. And I am your host, Tricia Carr. Welcome to today's episode. I'm really excited about today. We're going to have so much fun. We're going to expand our awareness, and we're going to connect our hearts together in our light, and it will be a life-changing experience if that's what you choose for it to be. That's what I choose for it to be. I want to tell you guys that you can watch this live every week. You can find it on my YouTube channel. We actually live stream it right to YouTube, and so go to youtube.com/Tricia Carr, or you can find it on a broadcast window on my website, triciacarcharm.com, and if you go to podcast and media, you'll be able to find it there. And then you can actually call in the show. We actually don't talk about that much because they be trolls out there. But I know y'all who are listening right now are not trolls, so you can go watch us live and then call in if you have a question for myself or for whomever is on this show with me, whoever my guest expert is. And so I also want to welcome you to my website to find Mystic Arts Academy. Under the Work With Me link, you'll be able to find my twice monthly intuitive mediumship development class. It's a small little group that we have twice per month, and it is to help us to expand our intuitive and mediumship abilities at whatever level you are. And it's kind of like an alchemy between a class and a development circle. And also my animal communication comprehensive program, which will be, you can start right now on demand, and pretty soon there's going to be a live coaching attached to it. And at any time that you join the program, you can attend the next live coaching. So go ahead and check that out under Mystic Arts Academy as well. And without further delay, I have the honor of welcoming onto the program Cody Edner. He has been teaching meditation and intuitive awareness for over 30 years. He's the founder of intuitivevision.net, co-host of Energy Matters podcast, and he currently travels and teaches advanced intuitive training programs, workshops, and seminars. And you may know him also from Energy Matters from David Gandelman, who has been on the program, who's been on Charmed Life, and then, of course, my other podcast a couple of times, the other podcast being Enlightened AF. David Gandelman is your co-host on Energy Matters. What a great podcast. Oh, my goodness. The guests you have, everything. I'm going to just probably talk too much about that, so I'm going to turn it over to you. Welcome to the program, Cody. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Tricia. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here today. It's funny to be on this other side of the stage here on podcast. I'm so used to the Energy Matters podcast.
Yeah.
And David and I have been having a great time with that. We've been doing that podcast for a couple of years. So
that's awesome.
It's been a really fun venture. Yeah.
Do you do many podcasts as a guest?
I've done a few, but not a lot. I haven't really even put myself out there to be a guest, that much. I've really been focusing on getting guests and being a host. So
yeah.
I've been on a few, but I haven't started kind of promoting in that way yet.
Yeah, you do kind of have to put yourself out there, I think. Same thing. I did quite a few there for a little while, and then I'm just, I do a show every single week. I put one out every week, so it's doing that,
right.
Focusing on that is a lot. And well, thank you again for bringing your amazing wisdom and energy as we love to talk about, onto the show. And I would just love for you to share with folks your journey and the work that you're doing. Let everyone know how you got into this amazing career, 30 plus years. That's incredible.
I know, it seems kind of crazy, especially back when I started. The idea of energy work and energy awareness and even meditation really wasn't out there that much.
Yeah.
I started, I think it was kind of 84-ish. So it's been more like 35 years that I've been exploring this arena of awareness and expanding my awareness, and been doing readings on and healing work as well. I guess I should include that. My journey of turning on happened kind of early, and luckily it all kind of fell into place. I know there's so many people out there that are seeking, and that can be, take you in a lot of directions, and a lot of directions maybe that don't give you the answer you're looking for. But somehow I fell into it. Really, I think there's a couple of things that happened to me early on that kind of awakened me to this other realm and this other kind of space that exists and an awareness of it. But the one that really galvanized it for me was the first psychic reading I actually got. I was like 14, and I happened to be out. Oddly enough, I grew up in California, which would be a place where you would think you could find a psychic easily, right? But I happened to be in Idaho, in Boise, Idaho, of all places, with my crazy aunt. You know, we all have that crazy aunt.
I'm her in my family.
Right, exactly. I'm that crazy uncle now, you know, right?
Yeah.
So, in fact, we just had our niece staying with us for a week, and I was definitely the crazy uncle. So my crazy aunt took me out to Boise for the day for my birthday. And we were at a bookstore, and there happened to be a palm reader up in the loft of the bookstore. And she said, "Do you want a reading?" I said, "Sure, that would be great." And it kind of turns out when we got up there, I think she wanted the reading because she went first. She's like, she goes, "Well, maybe I should go get one first." So I said, "Okay," which was great in this setting with this palm reader. She let me sit in on the reading. And this really crazy thing happened. As she started to read my aunt, I started to get impressions. And as my aunt asked questions, in my head, I was kind of going, well, that's easy. I know this answer. And I had the answer. And then the psychic would say the answer. And so I didn't really realize that at the time. But when you get around psychic energy, like this is why we want to have a group, you turn on, you open up. And that was the first time I'd really been around an active psychic. And I didn't know what was happening to me other than I knew everything that was happening in the reading. I was reading along with her, and I had the answers in my head before she said it.
Wow.
And it didn't even really dawn on me what that meant. But when I got my reading, the only question I had is after she read me for a while, you know, she said, "Do you have any questions?" And the only one I really had was, well, how do I develop my psychic abilities? So I had this interest. Yeah. And I was 14 at the time. You would think I would have some better question than that, right? Like about girls or something.
Yeah, exactly. But, sports, I don't know.
Yeah, anything. But I just said, how do I develop my psychic abilities? And the thing that stood out to me, because I listened to that tape, of course, this is back in the days of, it was a cassette tape, right? That she recorded it. And I listened to that tape later, and like 10 years later. And it was very interesting because she really didn't have an answer for me about how to develop them. Because for her, it was just a gift.
Yeah.
And back then, there wasn't a lot of schools or meditation places that you could go and learn tools for awareness. Mm-hmm. So her answer really didn't really satisfy, right? It was kind of him-haw, this, that, this, it had just turned on in her. Mm. So I found my answer later, about 4 years later or 3 years later. I found a psychic school, basically, and I walked into the school and got a reading there, and they had that answer, which really wasn't a verbal answer. It was take this energy work tools class, basically, and start here. And that's where I really started. And once I kind of got into that space and had the experience of experiencing energy in myself and seeing kind of some flashes of color. I mean, it was a real simple experience, right? It was deep and profound in the feeling, but there's not a lot I could say about it other than to describe it, which doesn't do it justice, right? That's that inner turning on experience. It's like profound, but how do you really put it into words to someone else to where they could understand it, unless they've started to have it. So that turning on moment, once I had that, I was really hooked.
That's amazing.
That I just continued to explore to this day. That's all I've really done with my life, which, of course, the trolls would say, well, what a waste. But I have read tens of thousands of people and have had many, many experiences of, spontaneous healing levels and deep emotional healing and spiritual awakening through communicating with people for them. So it's been a very powerful experience. And there's always something to learn. The thing that, I guess it's like any art that you might do, whether it's like martial arts is a style of art or yoga, you consider an art, but anything that you do like that, there's no end to the depth that you learn. And even the first lesson reoccurs at a deeper level, or the first thing you learn. Like the first thing I learned was grounding, which sounds so simple. And it really just sounds like, well, that's just, being connected to the planet. And yet 30 some odd years later, there are deep epiphanies about what that actually means that continue to kind of come up as an example. Grounding. But it happens on all levels. I'm sure you're aware of that there's no end to that depth that is to be found in this awareness.
Grounding is is even more important than ever, I think, because we spend all our time astral, you know what I mean? Like in a make-believe world of the internet and even email. And so it's even more important than it was back in 1990 or whenever maybe you found grounding for the first time.
It's true. The world does seem to demand and pull our attention in ways that it just didn't back then. In the early 80s, when I started into this, we didn't have all of this stuff coming at us that was really programmed. Like they know how to grab your attention, right? It's like it's manipulating our attention. And so we didn't have all that. So the idea of grounding and centering today, yes, I think is definitely more important to not get lost in the energy and the messages of this digital assault we're experiencing on our consciousness. It's pretty profound to watch that difference.
You bring up how just being in the energy of someone who had their psychic abilities turned on, actually, I don't know if it opened it or just pointed you to the fact that it was just there already that first time when you were 14. And to me, that just speaks to how literal energy is. It's like being in people. I think we get a little bit entendre with how we perceive things. We think in order to do this, I must want it really badly, which wanting it really badly is the absence of having the thing. But it's so literal, being in the frequency of someone, even though she didn't know how to do it, tell you how to do it, yourself, that is what that offering is, what actually did it. And that speaks to the power of, that actually explains why energy healing works, why it happens, because the healer is just offering a frequency.
Yeah, exactly. And there's this interesting thing in the energy working or intuitive psychic awareness arena that is there's some things that are very different in that space than what we encounter and are taught in the world. And one is that you have to try really hard. You have to concentrate really hard. And that, in fact, kind of stops the flow of your psychic and intuitive opening. So any kind of effort in a mental part that brings you more into the mind, where you're trying to figure it out, tends to stop that flow. So it's kind of this funny paradox where to open up intuitively, it has to be effortless. And it has to be a present awareness and focus, but not concentration, not like you would think where you're trying to read a book and understand it, because it's a different level of perception. So there's these things that we're brought up with in school that actually inhibit us opening up to and validating the perceptions that come through intuitive and energy awareness. So we have to unlearn a few things, or at least realize that we're stepping into a different space. And then there's, of course, the way that we get there. It's not something that we can force ourselves into. It is something that's best explored or opened up to by matching someone else. And that speaks to one of our core abilities as a human being, which is our ability psychically to match one another. So, in an empathetic sense, when you match someone and they're in pain, you might feel their pain. So we might say, well, that's bad. I don't want to do that. But in terms of opening up, when you match someone that is highly intuitive, you suddenly open up to that same level of intuitiveness. So when you bring a group together and you set the energy and intention, and they step into that energy bubble, suddenly what was already there in them, either dormant or not validated, that might be that it's not acknowledged as real, suddenly becomes something that they can experience and validate. And that's like the key to our continued opening, is being able to validate the experience of that reality and put ourselves in places where it's like safe and okay to have that experience, which is what a group setting can do, which is what being around someone who's been practicing for a while can do.
I love teaching, and I love hearing you and being in the energy, but teaching, that's why I love teaching so much, is just the space we hold with one another. And it's just so magical to me you've done thousands of readings, but it's kind of interesting because, you do a reading and then someone will probably message you a couple days later, a week later or something, and it'll be like, all these things are happening. You know what I mean?
Right.
And as readers, you're like, that was the work we were, it's not even like their whole world is exploding and their head is exploding. And you're like, yeah.
Right. And that is, of course, one of the things that can happen is we can get a little bit jaded by just, it becomes everyday
mundane
thing for us.
It's mundane.
Mundane, It's like normal. It's like, whatever. But when someone gets that hello, we call it, or that communication to who they are as a spirit and to their energy, it's like their whole world can just shift and things can start to explode in ways that, they maybe have been putting energy into trying to make things happen or change things. And that hello, suddenly they get unstuck and it just starts to happen. And that's a pretty common, I guess, I don't know if I want to call it a reaction. I guess it's a common thing that
outcome.
A reading and a healing does. Yeah, a common outcome is that it moves the needle a little bit without them having to figure it out. Back in the 80s and 90s, when this wasn't really well known, we used to have a lot of people come into the school, of course, for readings, and something that would happen very often is that people would get that hello and then they would kind of come out of it and they would say, wow, I've been kind of in therapy for many years, and just in this last 2 hours, I've really had more insights about myself than in the last 2 years or something like that.
I've heard that too.
It cuts through that mental ruminating that we can get in, and it just goes right to the core of who we are. To be seen that way is so powerful. Well, that's why I still do it, obviously.
Right. Yeah. So we have like the conscious mind, and then there's like this little film that there's a conscious mind, the subconscious mind. 88% of our mind is the subconscious. So it's like kind of more important. Subconscious is basically the same thing as that intuitive or psychic realm. And there's like a little film between the conscious and subconscious, which is like your critical mind. And so with therapy, I think sometimes, but this is not to diminish all, because some cognitive behavioral therapists are very intuitive and they're working very much in the energy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But sometimes that cognitive behavioral therapy is more about just staying in the conscious mind and running, almost like running scripts over and over. And so it's kind of, it's painful and long at best, because you aren't really punching through that critical layer and getting into the subconscious, which is the cause of all things and the deeper truth of who you are.
Right.
But with this work, we just kind of go, poof, we're going to go right in there. And that's why it can be really impactful.
We kind of bypass some of that. Yeah. And this is not to say that therapy doesn't have value. It's
Absolutely.
Just a different thing. And in fact, a number of years back, I started a whole group here. I'm out in Colorado Springs, and I had a number of therapists in the group who were then looking for how to kind of incorporate some of these ideas of, grounding and working with energy to create space and boundaries, and, getting centered into their therapy for those people that were ready for that, So that was something we talked a lot about, and how they could bring that into that process to help people move through certain things. Because there are certain things they think that we can't figure out, but when we can see it, when we have the insight about it, we can move past it. We can let it go.
Yes.
There's this deeper understanding that arises. That idea of the subconscious mind, or that part of our mind that is always running below the awareness as well. Like we might have the conscious awareness is oftentimes captured by the world. And then there's this background awareness that's not quite subconscious, but it's like the
unconscious. It's
like a little bit unconscious. I've often thought, and I've seen this over the years, that the more you meditate, the more you kind of shrink that part of yourself. In other words, you bring that unconscious or subconscious starts to bubble up into your consciousness. You start to become aware of those things that are going on in the background, which can be very helpful when those are things that are negative or disempowering in some way, and we don't realize it, right? We're absorbed into the world and just trying to deal with what's coming at us every day. And when we can step back and meditate and start to see those things in the background that might be disempowering or inhibiting us or just rooted in fear, and acknowledge them, they tend to release. And we have some tools to help release the deeper things, but just the awareness starts to let us release those things. And I think one aspect of being more intuitive and psychic is that the conscious mind starts to grow. In other words, you start to become more and more conscious of what's going on under the surface. And the under the surface part starts to shrink a little bit.
It's like you're fluid between how things are, you're integrated. That's really what it comes down to.
That's a good word for it. Yeah.
It's just integrated and there's more fluidity. So yeah, if there are unconscious negative scripts or things running, you can become really aware of it because your awareness is more integrated or more fluid in the entirety of your being space, I would say. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think that is the ultimate outcome, I think, is to be fully integrated with the spirit, mind, and the body, really. So all those things, we talk of them as three separate things, but the ultimate goal of kind of the mystical path would be to have them fully integrated, where I'm being all of that and aware of all those levels at once. And that's what I present to the world, or that's what comes through to the world, rather than these kind of separate parts that are oftentimes at odds with one another. They're not in harmony. Or at odds with the world. So it's just the meditative side of the journey is very powerful. The whole intuitive psychic side of the journey, for me, and the way I teach it and David teaches it in our courses, is about learning to use that interaction for healing, really for both sides. So when you are seeing something in someone else, you use that to also reflect back and have deeper insights about yourself and see things that you wouldn't otherwise just sit down and see in yourself, because we are not that good at sitting down and looking at ourselves neutrally.
Yes, we have domestic,
pretty hard to do.
Domestic blinders about ourselves. Yes, but what's really lovely about that is that then we have to experience one another, so we can see the reflection of ourselves better. It's kind of
right.
It's kind of a beautiful problem, not being able to observe ourselves very objectively. We are the subject, so how could we be objective? I have a question for you that's going to seem very simple, but I'm just going to pitch it at you. Is everyone psychic?
Yes, I think everyone is psychic. I mean, certainly that's what I have promoted over the years, is that idea that everyone is psychic. Of course, in order to, say that, maybe what we have to do is define what does that mean,
right? Yeah. Let's define the difference between the word psychic and intuitive, if there is one at all. Yeah, I would love for you to chat about that stuff. and I don't even know if there is a difference other than, I think psychic connotation.
is like the connotation, and it's like the umbrella that would cover all the different aspects of those energy experiences. So I mean, the real core of psychic as a word means soul essence. So everybody has that soul essence. Now when we think of a psychic, maybe we're thinking of someone that's tapped into that aspect of reality and interacts with it and can see it. When we think of psychic, it might elicit some kind of connotations from the media that says, it's almost like you're supposed to be kind of omnipresent and know everything, right? So that's the challenge is, well, if you're psychic, then what am I thinking? It's like, well, how the hell do I know what you're thinking? And
I don't want to know.
How do I know you're not going to change it and lie to me the minute if I get it right? It's like, I don't know what game you're playing if that's the level you're at. To be psychic means to be connected with that soul essence or the energy. To be intuitive means to hear that message that arises from there. One of the things that David and I focus on is clairvoyance, which is the ability to see energy or clear seeing. And that's one way to interact with energy that awakens a lot of awareness and insight relative to energy. There's other ways. A lot of people feel energy, and that's a great way to interact with energy, and that's a great way we interact in the world. But there's some downsides in that if I, am being real clairsentient and feeling everything, and I'm in a room of angry people, I might be overwhelmed by that feeling and that emotion. I might even become angry or in pain, or I might absorb and heal without really realizing it. So our focus tends to be on the clairvoyant side. But I think we incorporate all of it. That's why the business I created is Intuitive Vision, because I think that kind of speaks to the incorporation of all of those different abilities kind of into a vision for yourself. So you have that emotional kind of clairsentient awareness, you have this intuition, and you have a knowing, you have the visual part of it, and all of it together, I think, is how we kind of create a vision for ourselves, or see a vision for someone else, like if we're using it to read. So whether we're using that to create our own life and set our own energy and day, or to kind of reflect on where someone else is, I think that idea, intuitive vision, kind of encapsulates it all to me.
For me, the first step on my journey in awakening to my intuitive psychic abilities, gifts, whatever you want to call it, the very first step was understanding this principle of being an empath and recognizing, whoa, this is malfunctioning. And that was because I was matching everyone to my own detriment, and not to their own health either. Abraham Hicks says you can't get sick enough to make another person well. And so that was the first step, and that's my recommendation to people too. The first step, if you have that empathic, sensitive nature that is running amok, I liken it to the autoimmune system. When you have an autoimmune disease, it's functioning the wrong way and it's attacking you. It's attacking your, immune system. But when it's functioning the right way, when your immune system's functioning properly, it actually makes you healthier. And that's what I think that mirror is of that sensitive, emotional, empathic body. And so I totally, but here's the thing that like you say, when they all come together, I had an experience this past year where there was a woman who was in this terrible devastation where her house had burned down and her cats had died, and I was there to help her and witness it. And I had that moment as that empath where I started to match it and I started to crumble. I feel that starting to happen. And then I said, no, that doesn't help anyone, and sort of called in light, and then held that higher frequency of you will make it through this, there is a healing on the other side of this, and supported her. And so I kept that sensitivity from doing the wrong thing,
Right.
But the clairvoyance, they can all kind of coalesce, because I feel like you still need to get that sensitive nature moving the right way, because then you can still attract from energy and see energy that makes you feel bad. You know what I mean? Like if you, you know what I mean? Like even though it's clairvoyant, you still kind of have to work on that base and that interpersonal experience before you can kind of really become a healer, be able to hold the space of healing, I should say.
Yeah, it's definitely a journey. And I think that's where tools help, because that gives you a place to kind of work. And I love your analogy of the immune system, because, it's easy when someone starts to become aware of energy and maybe the empathic ability and how it can affect them, right? They start to become aware of how sensitive they are to energy. And it's easy to want to just shut that off and push it away. But it is like the immune system. It doesn't mean that the ability is bad.
Right.
It means that you're having to learn how to control it.
Learn to use the tool. Yeah.
In a right way. And so that's one of the ways we could talk about what we teach in terms of psychic awareness and tools to work with energy is energy management, just from a personal side. Like, how do you manage your own sensitivity? How do you manage the interactions of energies that affect you in the body in such a way that it can knock you outside yourself and knock you unconscious, or cause you to go into pain, or to get out of communication with yourself and out of flow? How do you manage all of that when you start to awaken to the fact that it's there and it's happening, and that we are self-medicating relative to that a lot in this world, and we are kind of maybe pushing some of that away or pushing it down in our awareness because we don't know what to do with it. And opening up to your intuitive nature and to energy and to being psychic, it can be very kind of a rough road in the beginning because you start to let all that stuff you've been pushing down in your awareness, you let it start to come up into awareness. And it's a steep learning curve of, well, what do I now do with that? Do I go hide and never go out into public? Or do I start to give a little attention and awareness to how to hold my energy and my space in a way that's safe for me and that has good boundaries, and I can still have the awareness without being overwhelmed by the energy. And that's really the journey.
And people, I find people sometimes every now and again, different places that they are, or personality types maybe, and they are afraid. They want to keep a lid on that stuff because they don't want to bring it into awareness. But the truth of the matter is, you're already injured. Like, you're not going to become more injured by becoming aware of what you've been cramming down there. Actually, every time that it comes into awareness, it's released. It's actually a healing. You know what I mean? Like, it can feel a bit chaotic, but you were standing on top of chaos already, and it was in your space. You were functioning at, it's a diminished level because your life force energy is tending to that, even though you've crammed it down into the basement. It's sucking away your life force energy, really.
Yeah, exactly. It's just because you're keeping a lid on it doesn't mean it's not affecting you.
Doesn't mean it doesn't stink. It still stinks.
More in many ways. Yeah. I was reading this lady a while back, and she had a lot of that energy where she was really holding it together, was kind of the phrase that kept coming up. And she was really kind of like validated that she was holding it together. And at one point, as I was kind of working through the reading and talking about this energy dynamic in her, I said, you do realize that if you're holding it together, that means you've already lost it, right? That's what you do after you've lost it. So what we're want to teach you is how to not lose it, right? So you're never holding it together. That's
an
not
illusion.
The right way to approach it. Yeah, that's the illusion. That's like you denying that you've already lost it.
Yeah.
And when you can validate and recognize when you've lost it, then you give yourself permission rather than hold it together, because then it's going to blow later, right? You have to take it out somewhere later. That's the time when you need to step back and say, okay, how do I kind of take care of myself here? How do I refine myself and my space or my energy and reground or rebalance or whatever is appropriate at that time? But when we're stuck trying to hold it together or keep a lid on it, then we never give ourselves that permission to step back midday in the moment and go, okay, let me refine myself, because we are kind of denying the fact that we've lost it.
That's so true. So with that, let's imagine there are people who are listening and saying, yes, my empathic nature is a mess, and yes, I have that crap crammed down there, and how can they start to get a handle on that? I know for me, I actually got some energy coaching and stuff like that, and then of course my meditation practice. What kind of tools, or where can you point people? What would you tell people about starting that journey for themselves? All of it?
Yeah, all of it. That's a big question. Meditation is kind of the cornerstone, right? It's starting to take that journey inward and open up to what's there in the awareness, and opening up to that perception of what's under the surface. So although that can be really difficult if you don't have kind of a guideline or instruction. So you have to kind of find the system that feels right to you and that you connect with. Like David and I have a course, Awakening to Energy, through Energy Matters, that we teach. And that is the first step level course of just starting to awaken to energy, and not at the mental level or the idea where we would talk about it, but by going inward and experiencing what energy feels like in your body. What's it look like to you? What are the different ways you can perceive it? And then giving you some tools to work with and interact with that perception. The perception itself isn't just enough if you want to start to change energy and reset your energy and get a handle on, say, for instance, that empathic nature. And it's not really just the empathic side of us of where we lose it. It's that most people that are empathic and get overwhelmed by it are also healers.
Mm-hmm.
So they start to interact with what they're opening up to that could just be at an awareness level. In other words, if I walk into a room of people, it's good to know that that guy over there is angry and that guy over there, is in pain, and and that person over there is open and happy, and I can choose where I want to put my attention. That's empathic awareness, just as awareness. But if I walk in the room and I know that guy over there is angry, and then it's a problem to me, and I start to try to heal it, and I go into pain because of it, or I go into fear because of it, and someone else is in pain, and then I start to go into pain because of it, well, now I can't be in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So that's different when I start to absorb the energies than just the awareness that happens from that clairsentience part of it. So there's there's the awareness part of it, which doesn't have to affect us at all. We just know what's going on. That just is the receptor. And then we could act appropriately. So if someone's angry and I know, and they're, a friend of mine, I can go over and express empathy and say, how are you doing today? It seems like you're having a hard time, and make a connection and deal with it. But if I absorb it, then I can't, because I go into fear, or I have a reaction, and then I have to pull away to protect myself. So that's kind of the breakdown. Mm-hmm. And what you were talking about earlier, like a healer has to learn to hold their energy. So if I am a healer and I match where the person in pain is, now we just have two people in pain.
Right.
But if I'm a healer and I hold a higher vibration, and I have a rapport and an interaction with their energy, and we like to laugh a lot, and we kind of move energy, suddenly they come out of the pain and match me, and now healing starts to happen. And that's kind of being an active healer. But so often we are an out of control healer, where we absorb everything and we try to solve it or heal it. We could say heal it, but it's really trying to fix it for the person by absorbing it.
It's a codependence. It's a spiritual.
It is a spiritual codependence.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's what my guides told me once. Bad boundaries.
Yeah.
A while ago, I thought I was all super empath and everything. I had everything turned the right way, and my husband was having a hard time, and I said, "Do you want to talk about it?" And he said, "No." Like no, I didn't mind. That's sometimes you need to deal with your own thing. I walked away and basically had that virtual tap on my shoulder from my guides, and was like, "Yeah, you said no, but you still got a little tentacle in there, and that's spiritual codependence." And I was like, "Yeah, touche. You're right. I'll pull that in."
Yeah.
You're right. That's
Exactly.
Being a little codependent.
Yeah.
But I think what is really beautiful that I want to highlight in how you just described that is for the folks who are finding their empathic nature, their sensitivity to be very overwhelming, is to know that this isn't something that is you are made poorly and this is what an empath is they just absorb the energy and that's it. What Cody is highlighting here is that you can hold whatever energy you choose to hold. You can hold light, and that is an empathic nature or clairsentience functioning properly, in the way that you actually intended it. The reason it's malfunctioning is because you set up that system when you were a baby and you didn't have the mental faculty to know the difference, So.
Right. Yeah. And some of it's human nature. I mean, we certainly are social creatures, so it's very important to kind of interact and help one another on one level.
Yeah.
Some of it's survival, I think, in old coping mechanisms and survival of where we had to maybe take care of someone emotionally. And if we didn't, it was at our own peril because it'd come back at us somehow. So there's a lot of different reasons why, which is why what we start to teach in our awareness is tools to start to get a sense of and know what is your own energy space and what are healthy boundaries, and how can you start to create those so that you don't have to throw out the awareness to get out of the overwhelm and the pain. You actually can have the awareness and the ability and have your space relative to it, and understand the sensitivity that's happening in you, or the ways that you're sensitive. So we start to unravel a lot of that energy dynamic and those kind of enmeshment and boundary issues, you start to work those out.
Enmeshment, yes, that's a good word
the
for
awareness.
it too. And so to sum it up, Cody said, find a system that works for you. And as we started the episode with talking about how just being in the energy of someone who has something activated, has an energy, a frequency activated, that will help you to recognize that in you. So you hear Cody right now, and you've heard David on the show, and they have that program, Awakening to Energy is the name of it, yes? On energymatters.com. So that would be, a place to start. And you can also start in other ways, like just continuing to listen to different teachers and programs and books and all that. There are different ways that you can start. Because even a book is holding that energy. That's a teacher holding energy for you.
Yeah, I mean, that just to get exposure to these different ideas and perspectives, it's one of the things that I've always said while teaching is, in some ways, it's not that I'm teaching you something new. It's more like I'm reminding you of who you are and what you already know. And so tools are like a doorway into that perception or a doorway into that awareness within yourself. There's really not anything new that someone can teach you. They can show you a different way to look at something or show you an energy, let you experience an energy that awakens something in you. And it's like a remembering of yourself. And so most of the experiences when you're moving into and through meditation are more like that, like an insight where you kind of like realize something you already, or you always kind of knew. And it's whoa, and it clicks in, and suddenly your whole space or perception changes. So, that's more of how the process works. So a book can stimulate that, watching stuff listening to a podcast or watching it can stimulate that. And then finding that teacher or that energy that you connect with so that you're excited to be there is really important. So, David and I, we created, did the class Awakening to Energy live. And then we have a first level of stimulating or awakening to your intuitive self and starting to use that. We also have a course just on chakras. If for those people out there that have kind of been aware of this, energy awareness and chakras and those ideas, and want a course where we go through all the chakras, that's actually on Daily Om and the Intuitive Chakra Series. This is also something we meant to be for a beginner, someone that already has the ideas that energy is real and the idea that it's something to explore, and maybe even already has a meditation practice and wants to take it into a deeper level of perception and energy work. So that's something else we have out there.
That was like the second after I did the empathic healing, and then I started to open up. Well, first was actually animal communication, and then mediumship, and then and then the next step was like to do a really long, deep dive into looking at each chakra and developing that and healing and balancing and all of that. And I did that over a quarter as well with a coach. So I highly recommend that too. And what I teach, a lot of the programs that I teach, they are structured around also at the same time doing that interpersonal work of going into the chakra system. Like my friend Crystal Ann Compton and I, Crystal Ann Compton is like my David Gandelman.
She's your partner in crime.
Yeah, exactly. She founded, by the way, I should say hello to the Lightworkers Lab. She founded a community called the Lightworkers Lab. And
nice.
It's really awesome. Hosted on Facebook. Y'all go find it. So just a little plug there. And some of the programs that we do, I do that part of it where I'm actually teaching on the chakras and holding the space for everyone. And when we do that, I'm always a week ahead of them. It's like I as the teacher, you do the things that you're teaching. And so I'll be doing the root chakra a week before they do the root chakra. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's pretty awesome because the things will show up in my world of the work that we're doing. But that's a really powerful developmental tool to go and do that healing and deep dive into each chakra in a system like that David and Cody have. So I highly recommend that too.
Yeah, that's great.
I have another question for you to expand. I said, is everyone psychic? And that's a yes. I like earlier you talked about it as, I always talk about it as art. I think it's a creative ability. And so yes, everyone can sing, and some of us have a little bit more of a natural voice like Adele, but even Adele needs to work on the technical side of it. And that's how I think of it. I think of it is just creativity and intuition are the same thing. That's all the same bucket. So what is the benefit, though, of people opening their psychic intuitive abilities? And let's consider that, obviously the people are like, but I want to do what Cody's doing, so that's why I want to do it. Sure, that aside, but for the people that have other kinds of jobs and other kinds of life purpose that maybe isn't about specifically in a career technical way healing, but they maybe they're healers in other ways. Like, talk about that if you can.
Yeah, and that's a really great question because, back when I started in the 80s, most people who were going into this training and opening up and spending a lot of time developing themselves in this way, where there was no job market for it, right? And it was, in the 80s, it's not like that people are looking for meditation teachers, right? Or there's meditation apps or anything like that. So it was always about personal development, and mostly 90% of the people that did it, it was about self-discovery and kind of that idea of know thyself and really get tapped into your creativity and your potential. So it was perhaps a journey of discovering your potential. And I think you really hit on the key answer. And I meant to mention this in the first time you asked that question about, is everybody psychic? The one thing that I think we all kind of discover as we start to open up and express our intuition and get aligned with that type of energy in ourselves and that psychic perception is we start to realize that, well, that is me being creative. That is me expressing my creative self into the world. That interplay is where I find my true, really kind of creativity and perhaps power. And so if we're shut down psychically, oftentimes we're shut down on some level of creativity in ourselves and an expression of who we are. And so I think that's the biggest benefit is we kind of open up to, and we break down the barriers where we can express and be connected with that authentic self or those deeper aspects of who we know we really are and what's really true for us. And it doesn't have to be couched in the language of psychic.
Right.
Once you kind of get there, you'll find your own expression or the way you kind of let that out into the world. It changes. And it doesn't have to do with the job you're doing. You can do whatever job you're doing, but you can do it at a different energy level is what you discover.
And you can be more of a conscious creator rather than creating your life by default, by, in an unconscious way. Yeah.
Yeah, conscious creator. And one of the things that I think changes as you really come into an energy aware perspective and realize that everything is energy is, and you realize how sensitive you are. So oftentimes throughout our day, it's not that we're creating our day, it's that we're being the effect of everything around us.
Yeah.
And that's forcing us into a corner and we're reacting to our day. So there's a big difference between managing my day because I have to manage my own sensitivities. So managing what happens in my day and kind of having a handle on my sensitivities so that I can show up and create what I want in my day. And that's like really different experience between those two things.
Definitely. The difference between reaction and response. It's different. And then
say that again.
The difference between reaction and response, like response is it should be more neutral, and it's it's like an aware kind of way to notice what is occurring in your life. And then we can go beyond that, which is then to feel in management. I mean, like as in creator, that creator position of it, rather than constantly like it's happening, it's happening.
Right.
That reaction.
So you can start to consciously interact with it rather than react to it.
Love
and
it.
That's like two different experiences. And so just that can change your whole day without changing anything that's actually out in the world in your day. Just that shift in awareness and how you approach you approach the interaction.
And how you run your energy, obviously.
Yep, exactly.
So we're almost out of time, but I have one last question for you, and that is, I understand that you are a channel, or that you have, that channeling has been a part of your journey as well. Can you talk about channeling?
Yeah, so that is a part of the journey. Now, in the training that David and I do, that's a part of the journey that comes after developing your clairvoyance.
Definitely.
So, one of our ideas is that in order to be a channel, well, not in order to be a channel, that in order to open yourself up as a channel and have it kind of work for you and be safe, it's best to really know yourself and your space and your boundaries first. So that's always our first kind of push. But after a couple of years of practice in that arena, then mediumship becomes something, to explore spiritually, that you can explore it safely at that point. And so being a channel, it kind of has a couple of different aspects in terms of how I do it that might be different. That's not just about channeling something from out there. One is it's learning how to go outside yourself, or what we might say out of the body, and to heal and work and look from there. So as a reader, as a clairvoyant, I'm reading you through my sixth chakra, and I'm kind of sit right here with you. As a medium, I'm kind of going up into the spiritual vibrations and the spiritual realm that's outside the body. I'm kind of reading beyond just what's here in front of me. And that's a whole experience in and of itself, to learn how to kind of operate in that way. And then as you get comfortable with that, what we find is that bringing another entity, being, we call it, into and through you to kind of channel the information or the healing is very powerful. Like Abraham Hicks, right? She's a channel.
Yeah.
Back in my day, there was Kevin Ryerson was a pretty well known channel. Back in my teacher's day, it was Edgar Casey.
Yeah.
So there's always kind of been, this channel or this mediumship thread through spirituality, and it really goes all the way back to some of the oracles and some of the old style way. We have kind of myths about bringing spirit into the world, but being that medium or that channel is really about being that bridge between, the reality here in the world and the other side, the through the veil, and being able to kind of hold space for that to come through. And it's very powerful on a lot of different levels.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
The last episode I did it on my own, and I channeled in the program. I've channeled. It comes through every now and again, incidentally, but it's in my readings a lot lately, and probably because I have clients who come to me who are, even if they're awakening, their interest is so deep into it that they are ready to experience those higher frequencies.
Right.
Yeah, it's really potent. I guess that's the best way to describe it, is potency.
It is really, that energy level is so potent. I have a great story for that. It is so potent that, so back in the mid to late 80s, when I was already into this, my grandfather had come to live with us, and he was like 90 something at the time. And so he was born in the late 1800s. And Shirley MacLaine had written Out on a Limb, and they made a miniseries. And so I made him watch it. And he was raised kind of Mennonite and was
a little bit different.
Very, religious in many ways.
Yeah.
And yet kind of very spiritual in many ways. So I made him watch it. And all through the show, he was grumbling about why we had to watch it, and this idea of a spiritual journey. And she was talking about reincarnation, and he just couldn't get down with that. And I had read the book, and Kevin Ryerson was the channeler that she had gone to, and he was on the show, and they actually didn't use an actor. They had him come and channel on the show. So he came in and he did his channeling thing, and I knew this was coming, and I was thinking, oh my God, if my grandfather is having a hard time with the idea of seeking out on a spiritual journey and doing reincarnation, he's going to flip at this, So I was kind of cringing. Kevin Ryerson comes in and he starts to channel, and I kid you not, my grandfather is 92 years old, stands up out of his chair, and he points at the TV and he says, "Now that's real." And
I just got chills.
What? And he said, that's real. And I said, what in the... So he sat down and I said, what do you mean? And he said, when I was 8 years old, a guy named the Sleeping Preacher came and stayed at our house for
Edgar
2
Casey,
weeks.
right?
No, it was that he was the Sleeping Prophet.
Oh,
This
okay.
was another guy,
I thought maybe it was the same
preacher.
Wow.
Came and stayed at their house for a couple of weeks, and every night at 8 o'clock, he would go into a trance, and then he would come back awake, and he would talk for 2 hours and preach. And then he would go out of trance, and that being would leave. So he saw that when he was 8 years old, and at like 90, 91, somewhere in 92, in that energy, when he saw it again, brought him out of his chair. That's how powerful that energy can be.
Oh, I love that so much. You know, that reminded me, when I was a young person, I was in evangelical Christianity, left when I was about 20. But the last denomination of Christianity that I was in is called Seventh-day Adventism. This church was actually founded by a prophetess named Ellen G. White, and she channeled. They didn't call it that, but she would hold a Bible, a big, huge Bible, and apparently she was short in stature, and just like, ba, 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 you know what I mean? Like just channel. And that always fascinated me because, of course, in the paradigm, that is absolutely not discussed. But that's
my
really amazing.
Always used to say, if you look at the center of any religion, you'll see a medium.
Absolutely. Well, hello, Jesus. Jesus was a medium. Jesus was a channel. Jesus was an energy healer. You know, as the literature describes it, at least. I mean, even if the literature is something that has been created, still, that's what it is. So, wow, what a beautiful story. I love that. I love that. I'm picturing your 92-year-old grandfather. That's real.
Yeah, it blew me away. I was like, what in the world? And he was just said, now that's real. He can't help that. And that's really just stood out to him.
And like you said, whatever system works for you. And so for him, when he was a kid and the Sleeping Preacher, and that worked for him, that it was real. It was real.
Yeah, made it real. And he had encountered that energy firsthand. And that's, I've had people when I bring that energy into a room and then, everybody experiences it. And then I'll ask them, well, what'd you experience? And one of the ones I always enjoyed was someone, it was so simple. Someone just said it was like that thing where it just kind of takes your breath away, like a little gasp, when you feel that energy for the first time. It's just like, oh, wow, that awe-inspired connection as it opens up as you experience it.
Wow.
And so, it's timeless, and he experienced it as a young child. And then later he saw it, and it just was right there, just came back.
So you are channeling still? You utilize channeling?
Right. So I can do clairvoyant readings and healings. And then I also do channeled energy healings, energy work. So a lot of the channeling style that I do is about healing and working with an individual, not so much with a group.
Yeah, right. Are there particular known beings that you work with, or is it just sort of like you can feel the energy and it's just, a group in the way that Abraham Hicks, Abraham is a collective, or are there particular beings that are your known?
No, there's particular energies that I'll tend to work with. I tend not to work with groups, but I'll have a particular entity that I work with that will come through. And so, I have a couple of different names of entities that will come through and I work with. I prefer to work with an individual entity in the way that I work.
Are they
not so much with the collective
known energies, or do you have a name that others know as well, or is it just something that's between you and that entity?
Yeah, it's not necessarily known names. It's like Robert,
yeah, or that powerful entity, Robert. Yeah, I know.
It's really kind of a healer being that I have a connection with.
I love
basically, that all work. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I like that we kind of said that too, because sometimes people, when they're working with them, they're like discovering their spirit guides. They're like, wait, I heard the name Steve. That's not a very mystical name. So what?
No, it's not mystical. When you're discovering your spirit guides, remember they're probably an entity that you've known in the past.
Exactly.
That's why it's your guide, and so it might have been a friend, 5 past lives ago or whatever.
Right.
So it could have just a normal name, and also we so often can get stuck on labels.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We're trying to get out of our mind with the energy awareness and into the experience. So it's more important how you experience that energy, and the name just gives you a way to recognize it.
It's a benchmark. Yeah, it's just a benchmark. I mean, obviously, in spirit, we don't need names.
No.
So it's something.
You need that real experience.
Yeah. Okay, well, I've definitely we've gone over, but I could talk to you for another
Okay.
hour or so.
I know.
This has been so much fun. Really, so very much in this episode. I really appreciate you sharing so much wisdom and so much information. And I encourage everyone to go check out Energy Matters podcast, and also all of the really awesome programs that David and Cody have available on energymatters.com. Is that the energymatters.com or is it energymatterspodcast.com?
Energy Matters podcast,
Okay.
and we actually changed it to Energy Matters Academy.
Oh, beautiful. Good.
.com, because we're kind of moving more towards really trying to not just do the podcast, but do courses and share this information, because it is an experiential thing. It's not something to just experience in our mind, but to go inward and experience in our body. And that's what brings that integration. That's what makes it real.
Great.
That's the key.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are both really powerful, and all of Cody's links are in the description, however you are watching this or listening to it. And so I'll just say again, thank you so much, Cody Edner, for being on the program.
Thank you for having me.
It's so great to connect and to meet with you, and thank you for sharing everything that you have and everything that you do, all the work that you do. I really appreciate it.
Well, likewise. Thank you so much for having me and all the work that you do. And I watched your I think it was your other show where you had David on.
Yeah, and Light and Day F.
Yeah, that was like really fun.
Yeah, that's a different kind of show, isn't it?
Yeah, different kind of show, but I like that. That was good.
Cool, good. Well, thank you so much. All right, well, you have a wonderful day, and everyone who's watching, thank you again for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.
Thank you.